Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, later today, China's president arrives in London on a 4-day state visit, and already officials are laying the groundwork for what is expected to be a fairly extraordinary love-in. Xi Jinping has already praised Britain's visionary and strategic choice, and David Cameron has referred to a golden era between the UK and China. It's easy to see why the British government is so keen to roll out the red carpet for the Chinese. From 1993 to 2013, China's GDP grew by around 10% every year. In the 10 years to 2014, our exports to China rose from £4 billion to £16.7 billion. Chancellor George Osborne wants our exports to China to hit £30 billion by the end of the decade. Although this morning China has announced figures which show its economy is growing at its slowest rate since 2009. Well, protesters are expected to use the visit to shine a spotlight on China's human rights record, with the Free Tibet group, those supporting minority Uyghur Muslims and Amnesty UK all planning demonstrations. It's rumoured that Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn could use a state banquet to raise the issue of human rights, but the Chinese ambassador to the UK thinks that is unlikely.
I think the state banquet is for Her Majesty, is her show. You know, either Jeremy Corbyn or others are their guests. I think British people are very gentlemen, very smart. They know, how to behave on occasion like this. But we are not. We do not shy away from discussion about human rights. In fact, I have a good meeting with Jeremy Corbyn last week. And I do hope
your advice would be not to do this in public, not to do it in embarrassing.
We are not interested in microphone diplomacy, just like we are not interested in camera diplomacy. We are more interested in candid discussion. If he has his concern, we can talk about it.
Well, Diane Wei Liang is a Chinese author who protested in Tiananmen Square, but who thinks we should be rolling out the red carpet. And Alan Hogworth is head of policy at Amnesty International. Thank you both for coming in. Why do you think we should be rolling out the red carpet?
Oh, I think China has made tremendous progress, particularly economically. And I remember when I was growing up in China, we had true poverty. When I graduated from university in 1988, and the top university graduates were earning £10 a month. Today, China has the largest middle class in the world, the second largest economy, and the progress China has made is a big, big story. And I think it's good for UK to engage with China, and China should become UK's big trade partner. And I do agree human rights is a story, but it shouldn't be the only story. And look at China, look at what China has achieved in the past 35 years. And I think China is a success story, and now China can work with UK and make this success story to be global, to benefit both Chinese and the British.
Alan, can you separate business and what is in Britain's best interest with China's record on human rights?
I don't think you can separate them. I think it's really important that you use the dialogues that you have when you're talking about commerce and trade to raise human rights issues. It's important to remember that China still executes more people than the rest of the world put together, that there's been a serious clampdown on freedom of expression and the freedom to assemble. We've seen religious intolerance grow. We've seen a government campaign to actually clamp down on Christians in the eastern province of China. And there's still a great many human rights concerns. Most recently, we saw 249 human rights lawyers and activists arrested in July, 30 of whom still remain in detention. These are people that are standing up for ordinary human rights, everyday rights, such as holding the government to account for issues such as corruption, defending those who are trying to practice their religions, etc.
So you said that it's important for human rights to be raised in that context. George Osborne said he did exactly that when he was in China. He discussed the issue when he was talking about the economy and business. Is that then enough? Because they're not issues that are going to be fixed. Are you saying that they're issues that should be fixed before the business can be done?
No, I think you do have to have a dialogue, and that's important. We're not expecting, you have to get involved in the dialogue and try and work on solutions and how you address these human rights issues. Now, George Osborne said he did raise human rights. However, he was praised by the Chinese authorities for his modest approach, and we believe that you need to be raising them more vociferously. You need to raise them publicly in a very specific and principled manner.
What impact would that have, do you think, if it were done in that way?
In my view, as someone who grew up in China, and the way the China works is that we very much care about public persona, faces, and I think it's a lot more effective if human rights issues is raised in the private. And definitely agree, there should be dialogue. There should be a lot of dialogue going on at all levels. But when President Xi comes for a state visit, I think we must take a view that what proportion the story should be the economic cooperation and success story, which proportion should be human rights, and how is that the best way to address human rights, and is that the most effective to do a broadcast of shouting out human rights and lecture the Chinese? I don't think so. I think that actually will hinder the progress. And I think it is important for Amnesty International and other NGOs focusing on human rights, having tireless dialogue with the Chinese government to improve human rights. I've seen human rights improve since the days I was in China, since the days I was in Tiananmen Square. And the type of freedom that Chinese citizens enjoy today is tremendously improved since when I was at university. Of course, there is a lot to be done, and let's not forget, China has a lot of work to do, but in the past 35 years, China lifted 1 billion people out of poverty and created middle class that's 500 million in terms of reducing rich and poor gap globally. China has contributed a great deal, and that is part of the story I think we should celebrate, should focus on. And that's why Xi is here, to do business, to cooperate with British people.
What's your view of that, Alan? Will Amnesty be protesting during this visit and raising this?
Yes, Amnesty International UK will be having a vigil tomorrow at the Mall, just to raise our concerns and awareness around the human rights abuses that are still taking place in China. I would say that, that whilst there's arguments that there has been progress, and maybe there has in some areas. However, there's a lot of work to be done. Since Xi Jinping came to power in 2012, we've seen a marked deterioration in human rights. We've seen a clampdown, like I say, on freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. And these are issues that need to be raised. I think for too long, the attempts have been made to raise them privately. And obviously this isn't working. You need to be more vociferous. We need to be putting them on the spotlight. And actually, trade and commercial dialogues are an opportunity to do so. They aren't mutually exclusive. An actual, secure, safe China with good governance systems, justice and accountability is probably in the best interest of trade and commerce anyway.
Good to talk to you both. Thank you. Alan Hogarth and Diane Wei Liang. Thank you.